Literary Realism by Abigail Sanford. What is literary realism? Realism is a literary movement that developed in the middle of the 19th century in France and then spread through Europe, then the rest of the world. Realism writers worked to portray ordinary people's lives and intertwine underlying lessons throughout the story that force people to think about their own circumstances. Unlike romantic writers, realist writers focused on groups of people because the lessons that they were portraying applied to a lot of people. The realism movement ended around the turn of the century. However, realism techniques are still used by authors to this day. Political realism is a subgenre to realism which, according to the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, focuses on states which are concerned with their own security, act in pursuit of their own national interests, and struggle for power. The negative side of political realism deals with the ethics in relation to the states struggling for more and more power. Social and economic aspects of realism. Social and cultural. Realism authors targeted the common people as their audience and created literary works that reflected the majority of people and culture they were a part of. Economic. The characters in the stories were normally from the lower middle class and spoke how people really did. Social, cultural, and economic aspects of realism allowed the general public to relate to the characters in a way they never could before. Authors would often portray mundane tasks as heroic or extraordinary, when in reality almost anyone had the power to do them. Psychological realism. Most realism authors would put the story and overall plot secondary to the characters. Also, the author's voice in asides or comments was very rarely heard. Psychological realism authors would often place a large emphasis on the main character's interior life. They would use the character's motives, fears, and reactions to problems to reveal the overall plot. Psychological realism coincided with the emergence of psychology as a formal study and continued to grow as more and more authors began using it. Realism and religion. Realism and religion have an almost paradoxical relationship because realism deals with things that are easily tangible and religion deals with people's belief systems, which are very complicated and complex. Realism writers will allude to religion in their works, but tend not to directly use it unless it is something that the common people can relate to, such as attending church. The Human Comedy by Honoré de Balzac. The Human Comedy was a series of more than 90 novels that were of the first to portray realism. The novels detailed the private, provincial, Parisian, political, military, and country life of people. The overall arc of the novels was an analysis of the developing world of French society from the French Revolution to the eve of the Revolution of 1848. Doing his utmost, deploying all his energy, a young man setting up from zero could wind up after 10 years somewhere below where he started. From this quote, Balzac wanted to show people that the phrase, "things can only get better from here," is not always true. The Portrait of a Lady by Henry James. Henry James's The Portrait of a Lady portrays the life of a young woman as she travels around Europe discovering that despite her best efforts, a loving relationship is difficult to find. Henry James was attempting to show his audience that despite people's best efforts, love is hard to find, and that people will often pretend to be good when in reality they are not. Works cited.